Welcome back to the Cognitive Dissonance Winter Games, bizarrely sponsored by the very high carbon polluters who scientists say are damaging the atmosphere and defuturing not just winter sport, but life on Earth. Now, when it comes to taking action over sponsors for the well-being of global health, the Olympic movement hasn't always dragged its feet, as campaigner Andrew Sims explains.
When we look at the past of the Olympics, we can see that they've got some track record for making things better. In fact, the Winter Olympics itself has got a big precedent for making positive progressive change. If we go back to Calgary in 1988, as a consequence of activism by skiers and also a big lobby from the health sector, that was one of the first big global sports events that dropped tobacco sponsorship. And it was a real catalyst. After that, the Olympic movement more generally got behind it. We saw national legislation coming in the host country, Canada, and we saw the role that ultimately led to tobacco sponsorship and advertising becoming widely illegal.
After the ban, big oil and other massive polluters stepped into the tobacco industry's shoes, sponsoring sports and cultural mega-events. In October 2025, a massive sports sponsor and polluter, Total Energies, was found guilty of misleading advertising for claiming, like Winter Olympic sponsor Eni, to be a major player in the so-called energy transition. The lawyer Johnny White of the NGO Client Earth, a member of the legal team which secured the verdict, explains.
They do it because they think it has financial value for them to sell their product. And if they're successful in that, then we will not tackle climate change because we need to reduce fossil fuels to do that. The analogy here, the precedent, is with tobacco. Tobacco was another harmful product where the world eventually took action to completely prohibit not only advertising, but also all the other ways that the tobacco industry tried to increase the sales of its product. That included sponsorship. It included taking part in educational activities. It meant giving citizens public information about the harms of the product. And that's what the international treaty, the Tobacco Control Convention, does.
The international tobacco legislation is remarkably complete and free of the loopholes exploited by the fossil fuel industry.
So one of the things that's prohibited for tobacco is something called brand stretching. This is where a brand that has a problem with its environmental responsibility, like Total Energies, like Eni, will associate itself, advertise something else that's positive in order to gain the overall benefit for the overall brand and to continue to sell the main product, which is fossil fuels. And that kind of strategy is exactly why companies like Total Energies sponsor and spend large sums on sponsoring sporting events.
The oil company Eni, Italy's biggest greenhouse gas emitter, is providing the Winter Games with a range of services and products with lower greenhouse gas emissions. It sounds great, except that according to a 2024 Greenpeace and Recommon report, for every euro invested in its Plenitude business, its low-carbon division, in 2022, Eni invested more than 15 euros in oil and gas. However, considering the Plenitude division also includes non-renewable energy activities, such as gas marketing and retail that are still its main activities, for every euro invested in fossil fuels, less than 7 cents were invested in sustainable renewable energies. For every euro invested in Plenitude in 2022, more than 11 euros were distributed to shareholders through dividends and share buyback. We've already spoken about the Olympic sponsor Leonardo, which is providing communications equipment, although its core business is arms manufacturing. And that's what we're seeing all over these games and all over the world of sport, classic brand stretching of a kind that is specifically banned for the tobacco industry. There's clearly scope for tightening up the rules covering fossil fuel and arms manufacturers.
What we're starting to see now is that we're getting the first stages of that with fossil fuels. Cities and local governments are beginning to prohibit advertising by any fossil fuel company, whether it's greenwashing or not, and that is only going to grow.